Principal Matters Podcast, episode 428. Oh my gosh, it's Christmas, Jen Schwanke. Merry Christmas, Principal Matters listeners. This is Will Parker, host of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast, where each week we bring you inspiring, innovative, and imaginative ideas for your own school leadership. And I'm on this week with my co-host, Jen Schwanke, and it is time for Christmas break. Jen Schwanke, we're actually putting this out a couple of days early. So if you guys saw this drop in your feed and you're like, what? This never comes out on Mondays or whatever day it dropped. Welcome to, I hope you're getting ready for Christmas break. Jen, welcome back. And I just want to start today. We're going to talk about a summary of the year in review and what's coming up for 2025 for Principal Matters listeners. But we got to just pause for a second because I'm just really curious to know what's one of your favorite Christmas memories as you get ready for this year's celebration.
Well, it is the most wonderful time of the year. I could break out in song, but I don't want to awe and inspire everyone right away with my voice. My favorite Christmas memory, I have not overthought this. We just agreed that we were going to share a memory. I grew up on a farm and it was pretty rustic. There was no central heat. There was no television. There still isn't, by the way. My parents still don't have a TV, nor do they have central heat. But it was a wood burning stove. And what would happen is on cold mornings, we would build a wood fire and it would get screaming hot. I mean, so hot. And it was such heaven. It was so warm. And we came downstairs and my poor mom, who was such a procrastinator, had stayed up into the wee hours wrapping our presents. And my sisters and I got what seemed like a Mercedes Benz. We all got matching sweatpants. Purple, by the way, because the Triway Titans, where I went to school, Triway local schools to the Titans were purple. Purple power, Titan fever, catch it lasts forever. All those phrases written on our sweatpants. And, it was the days where you would get your name on the back of the sweatshirt, kind of that iron press. And then I had my name on the side of my sweatpants all the way down. And I felt rich. I felt rich and warm and so spoiled with my purple sweatpants.
Oh, I love that story. Okay, so I grew up out in the country too. And but instead of telling one of those memories, I'm going to go back to one of my very earliest because before Dad and Mom moved us back to Tennessee, Dad was in the Navy in California. So my earliest memory of Christmas was San Diego, actually. And I probably was only 3 or 4, but I still have this memory of Mom and Dad buying me a big wheel. Now, those are the one wheel in the front and the 2 little wheels in the back, and me taking it down the sidewalk. And I remember passing another boy about my age, and he stopped to look at it and was just oohing and eyeing. And the funny part is I remember him looking at my my big wheel, and then he started telling me about his Christmas present, which had happened a couple of days before that. And I was so confused because I didn't realize some families celebrated on Christmas Eve or some Christmas. And my dad probably had a ship schedule routine that made Christmas on a different day for us. I just somehow in my mind realized that this wasn't the same Christmas day for me as it was for this other kid. And it just was so confusing. But I just still have that vivid memory of just my little arms and legs pushing down. And I used to actually wear one of my dad's sailor hats when I would ride my big wheel down the road. And I would go to a neighbor's yard and I would, without permission, and I would take a little towel and I would sleep on my ship at his yard. And then I'd get in my big wheel and drive home like I was my dad. So that's one of my favorite memories.
Jen, all you needed was a pair of purple sweatpants. And you would have had the best Christmas.
So let's do this. If you are a regular listener, you're going to hear Jen and I do a little bit of housekeeping today because we want to just look back at the year and reflect. And then we're going to talk about the year that's coming and just celebrate together and also just talk a little bit about sometimes Jen and I don't do a very good job of catching people up on what I'm doing. And I don't always invite you to talk about all the work you're doing because we spend a lot of time sharing content and interviewing guests. So today's a day for us to just have some time as a Principal Matters. I hate to use the word family too much, but I'm going to use that for people that listen regularly. And if this is the first time you've listened to this show, you may just want to stop and go back and listen to the archives version so you have a sense of what the show's normally like. But we really want to do 3 things in the show today. One, I just want to celebrate the year we just finished and thank many of the guests and topics that we covered. Two, I want to talk about what a typical month has been looking like in the new work that I'm doing, and also invite Jen to talk about the work that she does outside of her own school district. And then I want to talk about what's in store for Principal Matters in 2025, because we have a lot that's going to be coming up this next year. We don't want anyone to be surprised, but we also just want to invite you to be a part of it too. So, Jen, I'm just going to first begin with kind of a summary of this past year. We had the privilege of hosting so many other leaders, and you took on the new task of being a chief interviewer. So it's not just me anymore now doing these interviews. You are too. And we began the year with I began the year interviewing Mark Goretz, who's an Australian retiring principal who loves to talk about, riding the waves of change. And then you and I dove into your new book on conflict management, which was a huge part of the year. I also got to interview Flip Flippin, who is the founder of Capturing Kids' Hearts, Melissa Barlow, who's an Oklahoma Principal of the Year. She has such an amazing strategy on connecting students to caring adults. And then you interviewed Dr. Rob Russell and Dustin Miller on some of the great work and research that they're doing. I will include a list of all of the shows that we hosted from this past year, but I just want to mention a few others. Middle school expert Phyllis Fagel just wrote a fantastic book on the superpowers for middle schoolers, and you interviewed Alyssa Gallagher on messy leadership, and then even as we're recording this episode, I'm just thinking about the year that we wrapped up. I got to interview Dr. Jim Van Allen, who wrote The Energy Bus for Schools that he co-authored with John Gordon. And David Yeager was probably, I don't want to like try to rank guests. I'm just telling you in terms of resources, his book, 10 to 25, The Science of Motivating Young People, has become one of my best go-tos all year long. And so just getting the privilege to interview him has been amazing. But and then we wrapped up the year with a good friend and inspiring mentor, George Couros. It's actually his work that I was examining probably 12 years ago when I was like, how does someone even create a blog? And so George was the first person I discovered doing that, Jen. So I just want to say thank you to every guest who contributed, to every leader who was a part of the show. Then those of you who I did not mention, it's not because you weren't important, but Jen, thank you also for the time you spent interviewing guests. I guess I'm kind of curious for you now that you're on the other side of being the host, co-hosting, and interviewing. What has that experience been like for you?
Well, I'm shocked how much I love it. You've been kind of after me a little bit for about 2 or 3 years saying, "Jen, you should do interviews on your own." And I would say, "Oh, yeah, shucks." But I took the plunge with my friends Rob and Dusty, like you said, and I love it. I really do love being the one asking the questions. And here's what I find, Will. I will meticulously prepare for these interviews, and I will write all these questions and I'll send them to the guest, and we get through like 2 because it's so fascinating. There's so much depth of experience and skill and talent out there with these leaders, and I just want them to share their brilliance with your listeners. So I found it to be a great delight, and I want to keep doing it. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, and I want to say a huge thank you to all of our guests, whether you've spoken to Will or myself. Wow, you just make this podcast spin, and we appreciate it so much.
Well, I want to say a couple of things that I'm thinking about while I'm talking about you hosting shows. One is a comment that a listener made to me probably 4 years ago now, where she told me that she purposely was listening whenever you were on the show, and she called you the Brene Brown of education. And I just laughed out loud because I was like, that's such a compliment, but it's also,
Well,
I think, such a poignant description of your ability, Jen, to really listen closely to what people are saying and to find that thing to pull out that someone else probably wouldn't have thought of when you're interviewing people. So that made me
well,
laugh.
let me tell you, Brene Brown's probably got smoke coming out of her ears right now, but that's okay. Thank you, whoever it was that said that. That was fine. That was sweet.
I had another thought and now it's gone. So I'll just continue going with what was in my notes. But thank you, Jen, for the work that you've done in co-hosting this show. Now I remember the other thought. Just that, a few weeks ago, was at an event and the leader was talking to me about the podcast, and he asked, "When are you and Jen going to host a conference?" And
Yeah,
I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, I pay to go to these conferences all the time, and I enjoy them. But man, if you two ever put a conference together, I would be there." And so I mentioned that to you. And I'm not even saying that because we're announcing a conference in 2025, but I am not afraid to throw out the idea to listeners. If that would be something you'd be like, I would be there, just tell me the time and place, then you email me or email Jen, because we've never done that. Now, you and I have been at a conference together before, and we've tried to be at other conferences where things have changed our
right,
schedules and we've not been able to make that happen. But anyway, I'm happy to chew on that idea because it would be so fun to pull Principal Matters listeners together and do some learning that we knew would be that we all know would be continuing a conversation that we've already been having.
right. That's right.
So,
Well,
Jen,
you need to tell us about what you got going on. You've been very busy. You are now doing this full time. You are connecting with um all kinds of districts and leaders, and I want to say consulting, but it's more than that. It's guiding, training, mentoring, all of that. So why don't you tell us what you're up to? Like, give us a typical month.
okay, thanks, Jen. Because a part of this of looking back at this year has also just been really looking back. It's funny because I don't think in terms of calendar years as much as I do school years. So it is kind of weird to do this at the end of a calendar year because I always think in terms of 23, 24, 24, 25, 25, 26. And so even when I think back to like this past year, it's hard for me to remember those are actually 2 school years. But you're right. Since July of 23, I've been doing this work full time. And a lot of times when people ask me, well, what does that actually look like? It's hard to describe it. So a typical month for me is a mix of in-person events, virtual events, and coaching. And for instance, back in the fall, I spent a day with the leadership cabinet at Owasso Public Schools, which is where my son goes. And we just had an amazing morning of just talking about um, reflective questions we can use in our own coaching with leaders. But then most of the time, I'm spending that time in training through virtual sessions. So I lead a Grow Academy with the Ohio School of Sponsorship program. I also do a Grow Academy with the Archdiocese of Louisville, with Pecos Barstow Toya ISD, which is down in Texas. So I have these groups across the US that I do Grow Academies with. I also lead masterminds. And then I do ongoing executive coaching, which is that one-on-one time that I have with principals or administrators. And then in between those virtual times, I like to do school visits. Last month, I got to go see a friend of mine at McLean High School in Tulsa Public Schools, Principal Rob Kaiser. Or even sometimes when I travel to events, I'll try to schedule time to get into some schools while I'm there because it just gives me the opportunity to do what I used to not have time to do, Jen, because used to I had to jump straight back into working with my school or working with my association. But those in-person times have become a time for me to spend some more time in schools and places. But sometimes I do events like you do, conferences. I was at the Louisiana Association of Principals conference in Baton Rouge back in October. But usually by the end of the month, my work has touched leaders in New York. You and I are doing a series right now with Sainies in New York, with leaders in Ohio, where you live, in Kentucky and California. And so it's just a blend of being able to meet with people virtually and in person. But it keeps me close to what's going on with leaders in schools. And you also, I mean, golly, I don't know how you do it because you're a deputy superintendent, you're writing books. Every month, it seems like I see you publish something new in a magazine. And then at the same time, you'll tell me, and then sometimes I'm just surprised when I look online and there you are in another city. So give us a little bit of a review of what this year's looked like for you.
Yeah, it's been a really fun year, and I'm not doing it full time like you are, Will. I've still got my job here, as a deputy superintendent, and I love that work. Love my district, love what the things that we have going on, although they are big, and we're working through a lot of problems. But I feel very lucky because when I can, I accept offers from people to come and work with groups. And what I find is very helpful to my my work is when I get to work with principals or principals and some of their team members, the leadership team. They come together and we really spend some time working through things. But I was able to do some work this year on school leadership hacks, how we can turn universal challenges into universal successes. One of my favorites is No More Us versus Them, how to bring together teachers and principals. A lot of work with that conflict management book. A lot of people really want to talk about that and what that looks like in terms of, boots on the ground. How to support a happy, healthy staff. One very popular one was what can you control? The principal impact on teacher morale. I think I mentioned in a previous episode, I had just finished a really fun PD with a district in Illinois called How to Work a Crowd, public speaking for school leaders. I've done one on rethinking data usage. I work whenever asked with new administrators because that's one area where I just have, pulls at my heart. And then I've done some work too with a training called Leading Forward, which is where we try to really proactively problem solve things that are coming down the pike. So I feel really lucky this summer. I get to go back to Canada for the third year in a row. I'm going to be at the CAP conference in Winnipeg. If any Canadian listeners are looking for a little bit of Jen Schwanke in your life, I'll be there in May. So lots going on. And again, I think I balance it pretty well. The work here at home and then a few things outside.
Well, you know how much I love to cheer you on. It just gives me so much joy every time I see you exercising your strengths and your gifts because, years ago when we discovered each other through this work and I saw you were presenting at an Oklahoma event virtually, and a colleague of mine, Dr. Gracie Branch, who works in an ESP now, back then we were colleagues with the principals associations in Oklahoma. She had invited you to just jump into a conversation with principals. We were leading through a book study of yours. You're the principal now what? And as soon as you jumped in that conversation, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be emailing Jen Schwanke to get her as a guest on my show, which that's where it began.
Right.
And then I was just like in my brain, I finally just told you one day, I would really love to have a co-host. And you were like, all right, well, don't just say it. Let's like talk about how we can make that happen. So we made it happen. And so it's been so much fun ever since then. And
Right.
we've also
Well, and I
added,
thank you. I'm interrupting you to say thank you. You have been an incredible mentor. And this is what I would say to listeners out there. You never know who your professional mentors and friends are going to be. They might come from an unlikely place. There you were in Oklahoma, Will, and you're like, hey, this has been a very long, really productive professional friendship we have going on, and I love it. So thank you for that.
let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. Over 1 million teachers use IXL in their classrooms every day for one reason. They love it. Why? IXL is where the magic happens. With just one platform, teachers can personalize learning for every student. IXL gives teachers all the tools they need to enhance and differentiate instruction without adding work to their plates. Plus, IXL has decades of expertise and is proven to be effective. Studies on more than 70,000 schools across 45 states show that those who use IXL outperform others on state tests. Ready to bring the magic to your school? Visit IXL.com/PM to learn more.
Hello, Principal Matters listeners. I'm Jethro Jones, a good friend of Will's. It's time for a change. Are you tired of fighting fires, dealing with disengaged students, and missing out on real connections with your staff? Imagine a school where you leave on time, work with parents, and lead with purpose. Since you're a listener of Principal Matters, you're probably already doing a lot of these things. Well, I want to help you take your great work to an even higher level. Join the SchoolX book study, and you'll walk away with actionable strategies to transform and improve your school, manage your time, and reduce your stress. In just 5 sessions, we'll dive into practical tools like design thinking, live sessions, and even explore using AI to lighten your load. This is about creating a school where every teacher, every student, and you can thrive. Don't miss out. Head on over to jethro.site/will and start transforming your school today. That's jethro.site/will. And I'll see you in there soon.
Me too, likewise. And we've been able to add to the team. So in addition to the work that I do and you do, we have Emily, who's now the full-time executive assistant for Principal Matters. We're going to bring her on in 2024. And Emily, I may have you open your mic just so you can say hello. I was actually, one of the previous episodes, Jen, we said something about Emily in there, and a listener actually told me they heard her laugh. And so you had your cameo, Emily. But Emily has been for longer than this year, for the last couple of years, has been editing the show for us and has been keeping up with the show notes and making sure that everything's updated on the website. But now is working with me directly to help me in this work that I do, because it's gotten bigger than me. And Jen, not only has it gotten bigger than me and you and Emily, but I've even been bringing on friends of ours that we call Principal Matters Associates. So besides you and me, we've got friends like Don Parker, Timothy Alexander, Jason Jadamski, Lisa Perry, Erica Bear, Tiffany Burns, Jeff Springer, Nick Davies, Rachel Edo Eckett, Tamika Highland, Frederick Buskey, Anne Marie Ma, Dan Kelly, Donna Hayward, Bo Brannon. These are friends of mine that also are just doing extraordinary work in their own spheres of influence. And we were able to invite some of them to the series that we're doing with the group in New York this year to just take turns in virtual presentations. So that was one of my goals last year, was to expand the work even beyond us. And so that's been really exciting as we look forward. But we've got some changes coming up with the podcast too. And so listeners, if you've stayed with this conversation this long, just a heads up that as we step into 2025, we're going to beta test something. And this is Will's effort to practice what I preach, which is, if I have an idea, instead of just going in full throttle, let's do it for a short time and take a step back. So for the next 3 months, in January, February, and March of 2025, we're going to increase the amount of content that you're going to be hearing. So on Mondays, we're going to do something called Monday Matters. It's going to just be a short update from me or from Jen on what's happening in our work and any lessons we're learning directly working with education leaders. On Wednesdays, we're going to keep the flagship show, which is the same thing you're listening to every Wednesday, with Jen and I doing our Q&A followed by our guests. And then on Fridays, we're going to start dropping encore episodes, because we have 420 plus like archived episodes. And I meet people all the time that are just beginning to listen. I'm like, golly, you got a long way to go if you're going to go back. So we've gone through and just found the most popular shows from all of the 5 or 6 years now of shows that we've done. And we're going to be dropping those on Friday as additional content. So stay tuned and tell us what you like, and send us suggestions if you have ideas for content or guests or other topics that you'd like addressed, because we're excited about the changes. Jen, anything you want to say about the new format? Because we're going to be busy.
No, I don't want to say anything, except I'm really excited about it. Listeners, will propose this, about a month ago? You said, hey, I think we're going to go bigger. And I was like, let's do it. It's all in. So we hope it works. We hope you like it. You tell your friends about it. I think I'm most excited about that Monday, that little gem that you're going to add. That'll be fun.
Yeah, that will be fun. So having said that, one other thing that you can expect if you are looking at the 2025 year for me, I wish I could say I had already finished this book a year ago, but I did not. So I've just wrapped up feedback from my editor on a book that will be coming out, and I'm not announcing a date yet, but it's my newest book, Jen, is going to be a book that the working title is Whose Permission Are You Waiting For? An Educator's Guide to Doing What You Love. And so this is a book that was really born from often really serious conversations I'm having with a lot of educators who are wrestling with their own decision making, and especially when it comes to transitions in their careers. And I've just found myself on the other side of that conversation so many times that I finally sat down and decided, okay, I've got to write about this. Because I keep saying the same things. And when I keep saying the same things to someone in response and I haven't written that down, it's time. So this is a 20 chapter book that's kind of a journey through thinking about how to disrupt some of the ideas you might have about traditional career pathways, even in education. It's a book about thinking about how to embrace multiple flexible routes to the places that you want to go. It's a book about how to avoid the binary in the way that you think. And it's just a book about some of the things that have helped me in my own thinking, my own strategies, my own planning, my own reflection that's helped me really tackle that big question for me, which was whose permission am I waiting for? And so this is going to be different than any book I've written before, because a lot of the books I've done before have been very practice and skill centered, or even my book on self-care for educators was very reflective, but this one is a little bit different. So I'm nervous, but I'm really excited just to share my own personal stories, but some of the steps that I think would be really helpful for someone who's really thinking about what's next for me and how do I make sure that I get to really connect my strengths with the things I'm doing.
Right, right. I can't wait to read it. I think you've had this book rattling around in there for several years. And it's exciting when you get it back from the editor, because then it's real, right? And it does make you nervous because you're putting your heart and soul out into the world, and people get to read it and then judge it. And so I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. I cannot wait to hold that thing in my hands.
Thanks, Jen. Well, as we wrap up, I just want to say a couple of things. And then, Jen, it's hard for me to, none of us can predict the future. So, but I want to offer some best wishes to listeners as we wrap up this year. And I know we started off the conversation with favorite Christmas memories. And so, man, I'm gonna ask a really reflective question. As you think about your 25, what's an aspiration or something that you would love to see for yourself, your family, your work? I'll go first if you want me to. But for me, I think when I think about all the aspirations that I have, at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I still have time for the people I love the most. Because man, we're busy and we're all working, and even with all the goals I just shared that we're going to be doing for this show, and my work means so much to me because it's hard to separate your identity from you and your work. But at the end of the day, as much as my kids even one of my daughters works for me, so as much as my kids will appreciate and uh, give me kudos for doing good work, that's not who they love. They love dad, or my wife loves me for me. So I just want to make sure that as I'm stepping into 25, that I'm also taking time to spend time with the people I love the most. And so that's a hope I have as I look for the future. What about you?
And listeners, by the way, he just sprung this on me. We did not talk about this. Well, so here's what I think. I'm talking to all my sisters out there, maybe age 45 to 55. I'm 50. I'll be turning 51 soon. And what I'm really grappling with is my physical endurance in ways I never had to think about before. I get really tired. Things hurt. And, my mom, who's 80, would laugh at me and say, "Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet." But it's really accepting who I am physically, mentally, professionally, emotionally, familially, and not trying to fight back against something that's natural and true. So that's my journey. Maybe I'm not the 8-minute miler that I was 10 years ago. I'm certainly not the 6-minute miler that I'd like to be, but maybe I'm a walker, and maybe I don't work quite as late because I'm more efficient and I don't have to. So I think I said to my sisters out there, but I don't think it's just um, a binary thing. I think a lot of us, as we get more experienced and we get better at what we do, we also have to constantly be shifting how hard we press ourselves.
Man, Jen, that's what they call you, the Brene Brown of education. That was just
Renee somewhere going, "Stop saying that."
that was so helpful. And okay, just because it's my podcast and I can do this, I know we need to wrap up, but I'm just going to say in reflection of what you just said that I've talked to my wife about this so many times. Like you can almost find a book on everything, like
Yeah.
a book on how to raise kids or how to finance or how to, even like the book I've written on whose permission are you waiting for? There's lots of books out there on pathways and self-improvement and all those kinds of things. Um, it's hard to find really good books on the stages of life that you and I are stepping into. And
Right.
and sometimes it seems like you have all these really great help books on the early parts of your life and career, but but that I know maybe we can do a whole nother episode on that at some point, because that is what you said is just so important and true to just recognize. But I think it's important at every age.
I do too. But you're right, Will. I remember, as a brand new mom, there were books and blogs and podcasts and everything about how to avoid giving your kids strawberries. But what about when your kid really struggles with mental health and you send them off to a big scary high school, and what about that? What about all the things that happen later? So I agree with you. Maybe I'm just not reading them, but
nope. But I think those are our real life experiences. Well, Jen Schwanke, this is the reason I so appreciate having you as the co-host on this show. And Principal Matters listeners, it's the reason I so love doing this show, is because I hear from you, and we would love to hear what some of the goals and aspirations that you have for 2025 are. And you don't have to wait. You can do that multiple ways. You can email me at will@williamdparker.com. And Jen, how can they reach you?
They can go to jenschwanke.com, and there's a form they can fill out that'll send me a direct email. So please do that. We're both available for any of you. Just reach out.
Well, I'm going to do something that a guest of mine recently did. And I'm going to share my cell phone number, because sometimes people just they have great intentions of emailing, but they don't. So if you want to shoot me a text and like a photo of you enjoying Christmas, I will I'll dance every time I get one. So 918-698-3770 is Will's phone number. So if you want to send me a message, feel free. And if I get some cool photos, Jen, I'll be sending them your way.
Perfect. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays, everyone. And please enjoy yourself, your families, and best wishes on your new year. Until next time, thanks for doing what matters.
Thanks, everyone.
You'll find free resources like this one at williamdparker.com. Subscribe for our free weekly newsletter, which contains bonus material, and also check out the links for Grow Academies, Masterminds, Executive Coaching, and Keynote presentations for my books, as well as for Principal Matters Associates. You can find out more under our speakers tab at williamdparker.com. Thank you for learning together, and thank you for doing what matters.